Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yeah, any other good that you can think of. There's that as well. Good day. There you go. And yeah, you're on episode number 246 of This Week in WordPress by WP Builds. I'll tell you what, before we introduce the guests, it would be really nice if we gathered a big audience around the campfire. Join us around the campfire of WordPress, if you like. And the only way you're going to do that is by hollering to people that you know. And I've got a suggestion. Why don't you go to wpbuilds.com/live, copy that URL, that thing at the top of the browser, which always changes when you go to different web pages. Go and copy that URL and then stick it in a social network platform like Twitter or something like that and see if you can persuade people to join us. We'd really like that. The more comments, the better. Just a thing about that, if you're joining us and you're on wpbuilds.com/live, if you're on that page, then you need to be logged into a Google account because the comments come via YouTube. But if you are on Facebook, you're in our Facebook group or something like that, then there's a little extra step. You've got to go to chat.restream.io/FB, chat.restream.io/FB, and give your permission. Otherwise, you'll just come through as an anonymous avatar, which is fine. If you want to be anonymous, that's totally fine. But joining us today, two fine people, maybe a third, we don't know, not sure. In the advertising that went out for this, we do have somebody else who we're expecting to come, but they haven't managed to make it yet. So fingers crossed that all is well with them. If they don't show up, we'll carry on with the three of us. But I'm joined by Rob Cairns. How are you doing, Rob?
Doing well, Nathan. How are you?
Yeah, really good. You're in Toronto, sunny Toronto, chilly Toronto. What's it like there?
2 degrees Celsius, cloudy and rainy. So.
Oh, the perfect pithy comment about the weather. We haven't got any comment from Pete Ingersoll yet. Maybe he's not joining us today, but usually by now we've got a comment about the weather. But Rob is Rob's had his comment, his little show notes intro, his bio has been hijacked this week, and it said Rob is not an AI bot. It is the real Rob. Rob is the CEO, founder, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. He's the co-moderator of the WordPress global community on LinkedIn. And in his spare time, he loves sport, technology, and traveling. Watching sport or playing sport?
Watching sports. Yeah. So basketball, Formula One for one. Believe it or not, professional cycling, baseball, hockey,
any sport. If it involves the word sport, then it's for you. That's cool. I used to be a massive Formula One fan. I went to quite a few of them and really into it. And that was in the days of Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna and that great rivalry. And then some reason that the sort of introduction of the technology in it at that point, it became so predictable for me that I lost interest and I never went back. So I never managed to figure out whether the technology was overcome by rules and it became interesting again. Obviously, you like it.
I still like the technology. I think it's a better sport on TV because of the in-car cameras and things like that. But I do go to the races. We have an Indy race in Toronto every year, which is not Formula One, which I go to. It's about the experience going. And what I'll tell you is anybody who's watched Formula E, which is EV vehicles, it's just awful.
It's so weird because it's just silent. It's just,
yeah.
Whereas the Formula One, if you've been to a Formula One race, not only is it deafeningly loud, it also stinks because of the petroleum being burnt off at the rate that it's being burnt off. But also, you basically do this.
Yeah.
You don't actually see anything. It's just going at 150, 80 miles an hour. Anyway, sorry, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about other things. But a pleasure to have you with us, Rob, once again.
It's great to be back. Thank you.
And we're joined by Mark Westguard from WS Form. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Tell us actually about the weather where you are, because it's quite fruity today, isn't it?
It's terrible today. Yeah, we sadly had some very bad tornadoes go past just to the west of us, and we fared better. But yeah, very wet and windy and branches and debris everywhere. So
it's actually made the news over in the UK, the weather where you are. I don't know if it's made it to everybody else, but just goes to show what a bit of a luxury life can be, right? A few miles to the left or to the right, and life could have been a very different experience.
It's like these tornadoes are like a laser pointer. They just put a scar through the neighborhood, and we're lucky.
Well,
it went on for hours last night, so very
well,
unusual.
I'm glad that glad you got through it, and also that you still got the power with you.
Yes.
Because all of our lives come to an end if the electricity goes off, don't they? Mark is the founder at WS Form. We'll talk about them in a minute. It's a powerful form builder plugin for WordPress. Check out the recent WP Builds demo episode. Oh, thank you, Mark. Check out the recent WP Builds demo episode about WP Form, and you can get 20% off. I'll show you that in a minute, actually. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, thank you for joining us today as well. We've got WordPressy stuff all the way down, including some WordPress dramas that have been happening during the course of this week. This is the website. And in fact, although we won't get to it right now, on the right at the front there, you can see if you click on this image, there's Mark's face once again. It's all about Mark, isn't it, Rob?
There is.
Honestly, it's Mark all the way down.
Taken over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Luckily, though, I have the power button. Look, I can. Oh, it's not about Mark anymore. Look, he's got. Oh, I brought him back. For those listening, I just took him off the screen. If you go to wpbuilds.com, right on the front is the demo you can find of Mark's plugin he did with me. And actually, it's spawned another idea, isn't it? In the near future, we're going to do like a 4, 5, 6 part. Haven't quite settled it down yet. We're going to do a full deep dive on what your plugin can do over many, many weeks, aren't we?
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be good. Okay, so that's our website. We're sponsored by GoDaddy, so applause and thanks to them. Really appreciate their support of the podcast. If you're into what we do, then click on this little subscribe button here, put your email address in, and we'll send you a couple of emails a week telling you when we got new content. Let's get stuck into it, shall we? So this is the first thing. We don't normally get to the GPT stuff, the AI-based stuff until the end, but here we are. It actually collides with WordPress this week because over the last few months, more and more people seem to have been creating not just chat and pictures and all of that fun stuff, but they're actually starting to create computer code, usable computer code. And so people, well, for example, like me, who really don't have any business creating plugins, I genuinely could create a plugin, but it brings up the question, A, am I really the right person to do that? Can I, in all good conscience, look at the code that ChatGPT has created or whatever AI program has created it? Can I, in all good conscience, look at it and say, this is actually deployable, this is safe, this is something that people could put on their websites? And hand on heart, for me, the answer is no. If I ever produce a plugin, don't install it, frankly. It will be harmful and probably be the end of your WordPress career. But there are people who've been doing this, and Mika Epstein has got an article this week on the make.wordpress website, and it's called Use of Code Generators Must Remain GPL Compatible. And so the position, it appears, in the WordPress community at least, is this: it's not against the rules. You can do this, but you must be responsible for what you put out there. Now, obviously, the team that review plugins, they're going to hopefully catch all of the bits and pieces that your plugin, let's say you've got something that's insecure in there, you haven't done something correctly. Let's hope the team will pick that up. But do they really want to be using up their time looking at thousands and thousands of AI-generated pieces of code, finding that there's a problem with them, then sending back to the author who still really doesn't know how to fix that? So there's one question there, but also the question of, if, let's say, Mark, in your case, you've spent a lot of time creating your plugin, it's GPL, right? We get that. But if some plugin slips through the net with aspects that were taken from your plugin, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it's GPL, so they're allowed to do that. So if they find that there's some code within my plugin that they want to use in theirs, they can. I think there's a moral aspect to it. We have had in the past some other people completely copy sections of our code and even the way it functions, which is kind of annoying. But at the end of the day, it is GPL. I think, the plugin review team, they're a wonderful team. I've worked with them on security reviews and all kinds of stuff. and they don't have time to go through reams and reams and reams of code. They have tools that they use to go through, parse it, make sure there's any glaring security errors with it. Sometimes, obviously, they'll look through it in more detail. But I think with anything AI related right now, you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. You've got to, maybe use it, but you've got to appreciate the code and understand the code and make sure it's correct before you put it in there, because who knows what's going to come down. Code wise, even like the image generation, like Dolly, which is part of the OpenAI API. I was doing some searches on that the other day, and I was just getting completely random images back that were not related to what I was typing in. So that could very well happen with code.
Right.
And I've done some code generation stuff with OpenAI, and there can be artifacts in there that shouldn't be there. So yeah, I think you've got to be careful about the code that you're putting up, and I think they're right. You've got to be responsible for where the source of the source code is in your plugin from anywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's AI or whether you've copied it from somewhere else. You've got to make sure that what you're submitting to the plugin repo is open source, is GPL, and that you're allowed to use it. Now, obviously, with OpenAI, that's open to discussion, because no one knows where that's coming from. There's no source or anything. It's supposedly completely, well, not random, but generated without need for source. But yeah.
Well, the GPL does. It really asks you to abide by, and I forgot the word before we started the show, and I've forgotten the word now, where you have to honor, you have to mention out loud who.
Yeah.
Attribution, that's the word I'm after.
Yeah.
And so I guess there's that problem. You may mistakenly fall into the trap of not attributing code which needed to be attributed because it's GPL code, and they're the rules that you're playing by. So there's that. And I don't know if that's an offense, which means that whatever plugin you put in the repo, for example, if that would make it something which would be taken down until you mended that. But also, just the idea that potentially we're going to swamp the plugin team with little plugins that want to go onto the repo, where the authors are not really familiar with what the WP coding standards are. They've just asked an AI to create a WordPress plugin. They've sought some guidance about how to get that on the WordPress repo. So they've submitted it in the regular way. But then, somebody has to go through that with a fine tooth comb, make sure it's all legit. And that is potentially a real problem. That team could get very swamped. Rob, any thoughts?
My biggest concern with AI-generated plugins is the security in the code for those plugins. So I find that I'm not a coder anymore. I don't want to be. So I leave that to guys like Mark and his bots, because they do a better job than I'll ever do. But the reality of it is, the AI generates pretty basic code, and we know about vulnerabilities, and any of the experiments I've run, the code seems kind of weak from a security perspective. So that's where I sit. And I sit there because one of the big parts of my business is I lock down insecure websites. So this really, from a customer support perspective, concerns me in a great way. So that's kind of my position.
Yeah, the code that I've had come back with some of the stuff I've done has definitely not been secure. I mean, there's no, filtering of code, sanitizing of any inputs. It will literally just, like, if you ask it, give me a value from the query string in a web address, it will literally get it. It won't check it. It won't, pass it to make sure it's secure. So, and that's good. Like we're saying, that's going to put more work on the plugin review team, because they're going to have to say, look, this isn't secure, go back and do it again. But if someone has just generated it from AI and doesn't really understand the code, it's not going to get anybody anywhere. So
yeah, and it is an unexpected consequence of things like the ability to create plugins quickly. Is that nobody a couple of years ago thought, well, maybe the little team that we've got of humans can cope with the amount of humans creating plugins. We've got that balance about right. Sure enough, there's always a delay. But if you then 10x that amount, because somebody creates a script which can not only create the plugin, but package it up and, send it off to the WordPress repo on your behalf, it's a bit of a problem. And nobody really saw that coming. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. There was another article, by the way, which I just thought was worth mentioning in the context of this. So the first one, I should just illustrate again, just for reference. That was called Use of Code Generators Must Remain GPL Compatible, and that was Mika Epstein on make.wordpress.org. Sarah Gooding had a slightly longer post. She referenced the Mika Epstein post quite a lot, and she goes into a bit more detail about some developers who've actually tried this. Obviously, you've heard now from Mark, who's given that a go, but so there's different horses in the race as well now, because during the course of the last week or so, ChatGPT now has a new little brother, it feels like, called Bard. Bard is Google's variant, and it appears that anybody who's tried, or certainly in this article, the people who tried having success creating plugins with Bard, well, it had been less successful. But we'll just have to see, really, how this goes. So again, it's not against the rules. You're allowed to do this, but I guess maybe we need some guardrails on what the standards are, how we go for submitting things, not deluging the plugin review team and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I think the plugin review team have already provided all of these guidelines. You know, they tell you what needs to happen with these plugins. So I guess it's just a case of whether or not people are using AI reviewing the code that they're submitting, or if they're just literally submitting this code. That would be a real problem.
Yeah. And that's, I think, probably what will happen, right? It's the reason we need captures, because people created bots just to fill in, well, you know, Mark, just so that they can fill in forms. Nobody in the beginning of the internet thought, okay, so we'll put a form online, but in the future, there'll be robots which will just maliciously go around filling them up.
Yeah.
It's just what happened. And I feel this might happen. Somebody will figure out a way to just create 1,000 plugins a day. And what do you...
micro plugins. So what
do you do? What do you do with that? Yeah, exactly. So the second piece on the Tavern, this was Sarah Gooding. She wrote on the 23rd of March. It's called Navigating the New Era of AI-Assisted Code Generation in WordPress. So go and take a look at that. I'll give you some more context. Hello to a few people who've tuned in. Really appreciate it. Peacher joined us right at the start. She said hi, and then coming back from 3 weeks between London and Copenhagen, where yesterday had 0 degrees and rain. I love this weather thing. This PM and AM in Valencia with blazing sunlight. Oh, a lovely sea breeze and 23 degrees. And then we're joined by Atif. Hello, he says he's joining us for the first time. It looks like we popped up. YouTube's algorithm has given us a new viewer, so that's really nice. He's in cold London by the looks of it, and he's been trying out Bard. He said he got access to Bard this week, literally today, in fact, and he's having very mixed results. But you should really know what the code you generate does, and more how to troubleshoot if it breaks. Yes, exactly that, right? Exactly that point, which is why I shouldn't be trusted anywhere near it, but somebody like Mark should. But also why it's a problem, because the plugin review team don't know whether you've got that before you submit it, right?
Yeah, just make their life easier.
Exactly. Courtney's joining us. Hi, Courtney. She's been to WordCamp Phoenix. I confess the social media that I saw on WordCamp Phoenix, there was a lot of that, actually. There was loads and loads of nice pictures. So I hope you had a nice time there, learned a lot and so on. That's really great. What else has she written? I wonder if WP Cody might have solutions in place to ensure GPL and standards as well. So this is Courtney making a comment about a plugin by Ovidu, and he's got this thing called WP Cody, which essentially is your WordPress chat GPT. You ask it in English, I believe it's English only, I could be wrong about that, and it tries to create a plugin for you, presumably based on ChatGPT or some equivalent technology. And I don't know, that's a really interesting point. It'd be really interesting if it came along with some guidelines about how it was complying with various standards. That's absolutely fascinating. And Max is joining us. Hi Max, nice to have you with us. And one again from Atif. He says, I agree with Mark that care needs to be taken. I used to help speed up some process. I used it to help speed up some processes, but need to check over the code, especially sanitizing it and so on. Yeah. Interesting point. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's the beginnings of the AI piece, but not quite, because I don't know anything about this. Mark threw this in our direction. What is this, Mark? This is, I'll just read the URL out. It's platform.openai.com. What is it?
So OpenAI right now, which is what powers ChatGPT, that data is limited up to a certain point in time. So I think one of them was like up to September 2021 or something. So one of the issues they've got with it is that data is just not real time. It's up to a certain point, and then they stop it, and then you then query that. So this basically enables you to create plugins for OpenAI. It's on a limited alpha right now, so you can sign up and join the waitlist to actually be able to develop for this. But it's going to enable, when you do a search in ChatGPT, for it to pull back real-time data. So if you wanted to search for, okay, what were the sports scores last week, it'll be able to go off and get that data and basically make this more of a real-time thing. It's a bit like when Google all of a sudden became real-time. You had real-time news coming into your feeds.
Right.
So it's interesting. I found it at the weekend. I don't know how long it's been available for, but I just discovered it. I actually signed up for the waitlist because I thought it would be interesting. One of the things I thought might be interesting to do with this would be to maybe query some open APIs that are out there and make those part of ChatGPT. So this, just a new thing. You can see a few use cases there. So like put in sports scores, stock prices, latest news, booking a flight, ordering food. So this could really open up the floodgates with ChatGPT.
Rob was all in on sports scores.
That
was all it took. I'm deep in. I was listening to a podcast before this began, and it's by a company. They were featuring it's like a tech news podcast, and they were featuring a company called Radio GPT. That might not be the name of the company, but that was the product on offer. And they are using something like this already because they had an AI based radio station. So it was audio. The voices sounded a little teeny tiny bit synthetic, but not really tremendously bad. But they were doing things like handing over to the weather presenter who would read out the weather in your local area. And the idea is they would syndicate this weather to all the stations throughout the world. They can then sack everybody, which is, of course, great. That's a really good outcome. And then you get this slightly robotic radio station to listen to. It seems like it's all a win. But that's a real implementation of this, isn't it? You mentioned weather forecasting and things like that. Presumably they were getting the data somewhere reasonably recently. Up until now, what is it? Gone up to like 2021 or something?
I think so. Yeah. I know. I'm not sure with GPT-4 how recent that is. But
that's till sometime in 2021.
So okay, still 2021. Yeah. So this will be interesting to see how this goes, and see what comes of it.
Thank you for your ongoing comments. Appreciate that. WP Cody, just to clarify, Max said is based on GPT-3 in brackets Da Vinci. It was switched over to GPT Turbo 3.5. Okay, thank you for that. And he also says ChatGPT plugins is a game changer as it is essentially an app store by OpenAI. It has an AI with different endpoints. The query endpoints will be the most used, allowing adding any documentation. Honestly, I feel I'm no longer needed. I'm just going to sink into oblivion and get the Radio GPT show going.
No, please stay. We want you instead.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. You say that, and yet you took a cardboard cutout of my face to Asia. It's AI gone crazy, isn't it?
I've still got it over here. I might get it
Go and get it in a minute. That'll be funny.
And okay. Actually wrote my bio too. So
it's all about Mark. Okay, if you like WordPress swag, and who doesn't? It's a frivolous but fun bit of the community, right? When we attend WordCamps and all of that kind of stuff, you may not really, from an environmental point of view, want the T-shirt, but there's a bit of you that wants the T-shirt anyway, because it's just a nice thing to have. Pick up all the mugs and all of those kind of things. Well, the Mercantile, which I confess I didn't know this had previously existed. Apparently it was going as an official WordPress merchandise store a little while ago, and then it stopped, and now it's been resurrected. The Mercantile is offering official WordPress swag around, especially in the run-up to the 20th anniversary of WordPress. The cost of the items is not that steep, to be perfectly honest. You can see things on the screen here, but it's things like T-shirts for $18, hoodies and what have you. The other alternative is to go and find an AI-based printing company and drop your sticker logo in. But here we are. In all seriousness, you can get all your stuff. It's just mercantile.wordpress.org. I don't know if I'll be buying any of this kind of stuff, but I do enjoy showing up to WordCamps and seeing everybody and all their swag. It's kind of like a nice thing. And slightly in the same ballpark, this is fun. The guy, quite a few of the experienced coders. I don't know who the team was that got involved in this, but apparently last time at CloudFest, they started off this project and they completed it during a hackathon session at this project. This is the Wapagotchi. It's hard to say. The Wapagotchi project, where, if you know, there's this mascot for WordPress and he's called Wapu, and I don't even know what kind of creature he is. He's kind of like an armadillo meets a stoat meets a squirrel or something, and he's typically curled around a WordPress logo. And now you can make your own. They built a web app which allows you to make your own. So a little bit of fun. I don't know if either of you have got anything about the Mercantile and the Wapagotchi. If not,
I like the Mercantile site.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the Coders Poetry t-shirt. I might get one of those. And the Wapagotchi, whatever it is. It's funny, I was actually building one of those myself.
What, a Wapagotchi maker?
Yeah.
You're joking? Literally that?
Yeah, and it had like a color selector and stuff like that. I just never got around to finishing it. I just thought it'd be a fun thing to do. But I'm glad they got it done. I think that's brilliant.
Beat you to the punch, Rob. It's not all about Mark, you see.
No,
it's just cool.
There are some other things. Yeah. So you can go to it's mercantile.wordpress.org, and a whole load of different things you can get there. And Wapagotchi is wapagotchi.com. And this is the Hello World article. But yeah, it explains how the people sat down and just created a fun little project whilst they were there. Speaking of events and all that kind of stuff, an important moment, and I don't know if this is a new thing or if this has been going for ages, but I don't honestly remember seeing something like this before. This is WordCamp Europe 2023, which is not that far away now. There's a call for mentors. Now, usually we're familiar with call for sponsors, call for speakers. This is a new one on me, at least. They're after people who have experience being speakers at events like WordCamps. I don't know if it's limited to WordCamps, but essentially they're saying, are you an experienced WordCamp speaker, passionate about sharing your knowledge and helping others strengthen their skills? We're currently seeking speaker mentors for WordCamp Europe 2023. You'll be paired with another conference speaker who is looking for guidance and support preparing and delivering their presentations. Now, I speak a lot into the camera, but anytime I've done public speaking, I literally fall apart. I am physically, my whole body shakes. Even, in front of a crowd of people who I know incredibly well, I feel great panic. I don't know what's in that, but I experience that. And so I could well imagine that there'll be a bunch of people out there who've stuck their neck out, decided to be a speaker, have been accepted, and then suddenly caught in that dilemma of, oh my goodness, what have I bitten off here? It's more than I can chew. So I just think this is a fabulous initiative, linking people up, one who can help possibly calm the nerves of somebody else, but also give them guidance about what worked well in their presentation, how long to make it, what kind of slides to use and all those kind of things. So again, Rob and Mark, over to you.
I think this is a great idea. Coming from a bit of a speaking background, I have debating training going back as far as high school, going back 40 years. It takes a lot to make your craft to speaking better for the audience, for you. And I know that any help that I've ever been able to give any new speakers, at different events, I've always tried to give, because it's hard. It takes a lot to get up in front of a group live and 40 people, 50 people. And I know to this day, I still get the butterflies before I take the podium or the stage. And that's 40 years later. So I think it takes a lot. And I think anybody who's giving their time as a speaker, first of all, there's a lot of kudos in my books because it takes a lot to get up there. And let's help those people around. So I like this initiative so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I saw some pictures recently of you. It wasn't a WordPress event. It was like a podcasting event, right?
It was PodCamp Toronto in February. I spoke about starting a podcast on a budget, one of my favorite topics.
Still butterflies, yeah, every time.
Every time. And I have an old debating coach of mine who's now retired in his 80s. And every time I talk to him, he says, "Do you still get the nerves?" And I say, "Oh, yeah." He said, "And that's because you care about what you're doing."
Oh, nice. Turn it around. Yeah, that's great. Mark, any thoughts on this project or whether you would ever speak?
I think I'd love to speak. I just need to find a decent topic that doesn't bore people to death. But, no, I think this is fantastic. I mean, WordCamp EU is a big event, and the crowds are big. The audiences are large. So I think there's so much valuable information out there that maybe people aren't talking about because they are nervous. So I think it's good for them to be able to gain the confidence to be able to speak, but also great for the community, because this is going to open up a lot more voices for us to hear and learn from. So I think it's brilliant. I remember reading about this, and it made me feel warm and happy.
Yeah, that's right. And the kind of people that they're looking for I guess, is kind of indicative of where they're seeing this. It's like a counselling kind of role. We are looking for mentors who are patient, supportive, able to provide constructive feedback in a helpful and encouraging way. Yeah, this is not the hard sales pitch type, is it? It's not how to be successful in webinars kind of thing. How to sell 40,000 kilos of your product. Nope, this is about giving up some time to do the right thing to help people who are concerned and just need a bit of guidance. And you're right, the crowds at WordCamp EU, I'm fairly confident that the crowd themselves are bunch of nice people, right? But there's still potentially 1,000 of them just staring at you, waiting for you to drop your pearls of wisdom. And
I mean, there's a lot of people at any event, not just WordCamp, that find it difficult to approach people. I even noticed that when I'm manning my booth. So there's all types of people there. Some people are confident, others aren't. So this is a great way to help those people out.
You say that there's quite a few people who don't like to approach your booth. That's interesting because
it's funny.
I've often steered clear of your booth.
I would. It's funny. This time I actually, even though I have a tiny little booth, but I actually split it in half. And I had behind a monitor, I had a bunch of swag bags, and it actually enabled people just to come up and take something. And I put some pens there as well. Just come up, and I didn't have to interact with me. And on the other side of my booth, I just had people coming up and talking to me. So
nice.
It was interesting, and that way I got rid of a lot more swag. I didn't have to carry it.
Nathan, let me just, since we're talking about, I'll toss out a real quick pro tip for anybody wanting to get into speaking: is learn to practice in front of a mirror. It's the best. My parents, when I grew up in Montreal, used to have a full-length mirror in the bedroom, and they hated competition time because it meant I took over. So try that. That's the best pro tip, just to get people going.
Yeah, that is really good advice. I mean, I've never done this kind of stuff, but I honestly become an absolute mess. It's really curious how I can do the podcast and interview people who I've never met before. But as soon as I get in front of people, it's a mess. Another pro tip, oddly, is about the previous article. This is a good money-saving tip. Thank you, Courtney. She said, if you are thinking of buying something from the Mercantile store and you have a friend in North America, it might be a good idea for them to purchase it. And if you are planning on meeting up at WordCamp EU, do an exchange there, because the international shipping is steep. Yeah, I saw that, and I didn't really explore into it. Is it steep enough that it's literally like double the price or something? But anyway, thank you, Courtney. I appreciate the tip. Bloggers, developer bloggers, or people in the developer space, you'll be pleased to know that WordPress has introduced a dedicated developer blog. You can find it at, this story is about it. It's called Introducing the WordPress Developer Blog. It was published on the 22nd of March by Chloe Bringman. and it is, imagine what it features. It's going to be featuring blog posts, a new home for developers, it's called. I'm kind of almost surprised that this didn't exist in the past, in that I guess they all just got muddled up with everything else. But this is where all of those posts in the future are going to go. And speaking of which, I managed to find one by Justin Tadlock. Everything you need to know about spacing in block themes is an example of what it's going to look like. Introduction, table of contents, and then you get into the meat and the bones. I got to say, I really like this design aesthetic. There's just something really simple. There is nothing in the way of me consuming that content. I'm just straight in on the title, tiny little bit of metadata on the left, which is out the way and I can ignore, and then right into it. And it's just text, some images, and we're off to the races. If we look at Justin's slightly longer one, there we go. Clear title, WordPress developer blog at the top. Into it, nice clear table of contents, and then he's into his topic, which is actually really interesting. Mark, being the developer that you are, this kind of stuff, you're pleased about this? This is a new playground for you?
Yeah, another resource to look at. I just wonder how this is different from developer.wordpress.com, because there's another developer blog there, which is developer.wordpress.com/blog. So I don't know if there's any slight difference in the tone of the content, but
maybe there's going to be an embargo on anything to do with specifically a uniquely.com feature or something, but I don't really know. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
the URL
I've written some stuff for developer.wordpress.com, and it was quite general, just stuff.
Would it have fit in here?
That I don't know. I'd need to read this a bit more and learn the context of it. But yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it, and I'm sure there's some great content in there. Yeah,
I can't in all good conscience say that I've trawled it a lot. I just wanted to highlight it as a thing. But the URLs, I'll just strip the URL out and go to a new tab quickly. Is just developer.wordpress.org, and then
if you put /blog.
Oh, you have to put /blog to get the news, to get the new theme, don't you? I'd forgotten that. There we. Oh no, there is a way.
News it is. Sorry.
Thank you. Not blog. It's news. Yeah, I did actually make that mistake earlier myself. But there we go. Developer.wordpress.org /news, and you get a nice search bar. And at the minute, that looks like, there's 4 articles featured on the homepage, and quite a few there already.
There's content.
Yeah, there's quite a little bit that's been added. So go check it out. I don't know if you've got anything to say about that, Mr.
Not really. Just another great resource for the community, and we could use all the resources we can get. So go check it out.
Okay, so there we go. I'll link to that in the show notes. Developer.wordpress.org /news gets you the full Monty. Antonio, thanks for dropping by and leaving your comment. This is going back to the helping out with WordPress speakers. I'm a bit antisocial at events and try to avoid booths, but talking to Mark at WordCamp Europe 2022 in Europe was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Oh, that's such a nice comment. It warms the cockles. Yeah.
Thank you, Antonio.
And then he goes on to say the previous comment was not true. No, he didn't say that. I am a bit antisocial at events. Oh, no, it's the same comment. Yeah, he's repeated himself. WS Form addict. Since then, yay, Mark, turn it around. Oh, that's lovely. What a nice thing for you to write, Antonio. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So here's the WP drama for this week. This is a post on the WP Minute podcast. Matt Medeiros produces a podcast, which is a pithy and short summation of a WordPress story during typically I think once a week. And this time the article is entitled "What's the Problem with Awesome Motive?" It does it in 2 ways, really. You can either listen to the audio, or I believe the transcript is a faithful representation of what he says, so you can read it here instead. But this is something that just blew up during the course of this week, where there was clearly some commentary, largely on Twitter, which was which was having a little bit of a go at the way that some WordPress plugins make it very, very easy to onboard you to their service. So, you'd be crazy to make it difficult to onboard people into your product. I mean, talk about marketing 101. So you're easy in. The road into subscription is dead simple. But then what about the opposite side of that coin? What about the fact that you no longer need that product or service? You want to step you want to step away, but that journey is fraught with difficulty. And the finger got pointed, I think, obliquely. I don't think anybody directly pointed the finger at Awesome Motive, but I think Matt teased that out and figured out that's where the finger was in fact pointing, and then created a podcast about it. Now you can obviously go through. He talks about much more than just that. He talks about Awesome Motive as a company and all of that kind of stuff. But the thing that I want to raise really around this is this whole approach to plugin development, where you gather people in and then make it incredibly difficult to leave. Now, whether or not I saw a, what's it called? Like a wireframe, like a flow chart. That's the word I'm after.
Mm-hmm.
A flow chart of a WordPress plugin. Whether or not it was an Awesome Motive plugin, I don't know. But it was a flow chart of the process of unsubscribing from the subscription. And it was utterly, utterly tortuous. The end point, it ended at 2 successful places. So there were 2 tiles on the flowchart which indicated success, and there must have been 50 tiles which indicated misdirection, buttons, put in the wrong place, decision trees, just being diverted to yet another and yet another and yet another page where you had to figure out, well, where's the correct path on the journey here? And so the conversation around that really, is this something that's ethical? Is this something we want to promote? Do we want to trash this publicly? What do we think?
I'm going to jump my 2 cents in. So I have big problems with the way Awesome Motive or other plugin or other IT companies lock people in and don't let them get out, especially their data. So that's an issue for me. So I want to draw parallels with this big monster company we all love to hate called Google. And what Google does is they have a feature called Google Takeout at takeout.google.com. And basically, it allows you to get any of your data outside of their ecosystem and download it across all their services. And that's going the extra mile. But I'm sorry, if it takes me 20 buttons to cancel my subscription, another pro tip, use a prepaid credit card for your subscriptions and just me on it when it renews. But then this becomes a pain in the butt. Like, do they think that by forcing me to be difficult to cancel my subscription, I'm going to support them and have nice things to say about them or any other company across Twitter or any other social media? So let's make it easy. If customers don't want to be your customer, let's let them get out of it real quickly. Push a button, be done, go away. And I think the other problem going on is Awesome Motive has entwined themselves into some big brands like WP Beginner, All-in-One SEO, Easy Digital Downloads, and so on. So they're all plugins that everybody likes to use, and they're just making it so difficult. So I have to agree with Matt on this take, to be honest with you.
Do you think the incentive here from the plugin manufacturer, okay, does their decision tree go a bit like this? If anybody's clicked on the cancel now button, we already know they're going to cancel, right?
Yes.
So that decision's been made. A proportion of them will give up canceling because we've presented enough obstacles along that journey that let's just make up a number, 2%, 3% will give up and they'll just subscribe for another year. In other words, we'll get a little bit more revenue for absolutely nothing. We won't have to do anything because we know they're not going to use the product anymore. We haven't done anything illegal because you can cancel if you want to go through that process. But we'll gain a little bit more revenue by customers, which we know we've already lost anyway. So that's kind of, I assume, what they're thinking. but kind of every almost like every fiber of my body thinks, well, that's a peculiar stance to take. So, Mark, over to you.
I wonder what the long-term ramifications are of behaving this way. It feels like it's leaving a sour taste in a lot of customers' mouths. Could that impact their decision making? Because Automotive own a lot of brands. If you were to consider one of their other products and you've gone through that process, could that impact negatively? I'm sure they've got data on this. That for some reason they think that these creative cancellation processes make sense to them. Maybe they are making money out of it. It's also the front end side of it as well that I see, which kind of frustrates me. And I actually posted it. I don't usually air frustration on Twitter. I like to stay behind the scenes, but I use Easy Digital Downloads for our plugin. And up popped this notification with 3 spelling errors in it in the space of about 20 words. And when I clicked on it, it was then encouraging me to upgrade to their Pro version. And I was curious whether signing up for the Pro version would actually opt me into their usage tracking. And I contacted them and I reaffirmed it with them twice. And I'm still not sure I've got the right answer back from them. But they said that if you do sign up for the Pro edition, it would sign me up for their usage tracking. I thought that's a bit strange because there was nothing legal-wise along the way that said that was going to happen. So that was kind of frustrating. And I also didn't like the way that they've recently changed the term usage tracking to join the community. So it's almost trying to fool people into doing things and clicking buttons that have different ramifications from what you actually think you're clicking on. So for it to say join the community, and that actually means they're getting your sales figures every week, that troubled me, because you're not joining a community. There's nothing community about it when that button is clicked. So I don't know. It obviously must work for them. They must be making money out of this procedure. And I think, we in this community, even in Twitter and even on WP Builds, we're a very small group of people. There are so many thousands of customers out there that don't get involved in this community and just buy a product and just deal with it. So yeah, maybe it's certainly not anything I would want to do with my product. If somebody wants to cancel my plugin, I cancel it, I refund it. I don't even ask any questions. It's just not worth the grief. Sometimes a customer will say to me, hey, I couldn't get it to do this. Could I have a refund? And I'll go back and say, it can do that. I'm going to process your refund, but just want to let you know it can do that. And they'll sometimes come back and say, whoa, don't cancel it. That's as far as I'll go on the cancellation front. And I have no hard sell banners within the product itself either. That's just the way I like to work. But Automotive like to do things a different way.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this dies down. I mean, typically in the WordPress space, when we get any kind of WP drama, it has the shelf life of usually less than a week. So it'd be interesting to watch this to see if there's any long-term things. I know that deceptive design, as it's now called, as opposed to dark patterns, which it used to be called, it does seem to be something which people more generally are being switched onto. If you went into a car dealership and your car was clearly broken and it was still under warranty and you'd had it for 2 or 3 days, you really wouldn't accept it from the person sitting behind the counter over there to say, no, I'm sorry, your warranty doesn't count. No, you can ask me 1,000 times and we're not going to do anything. And I guess people are beginning to become a bit more savvy with that on the internet, and any kind of weirdness, dark pattern, buttons which look like a yes when they are in fact a no, those kind of things, they're getting increasingly called out. So anyway, the piece that was called What's the Problem with Automotive? You can find it on the WPMinute.com. It was produced on the 23rd of March 2023. Now, interestingly, kind of tied to that, but apropos of nothing, there's no connection between Matt's piece and this, but it's interesting, over on the Verge website. Now, the FTC is a phrase that I hear a lot, and I know it's got to do with tech, and I know it's got to do with keeping tech companies within the legal system. I don't actually know what FTC stands for. Somebody could...
Federal Trade Commission.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, so they're looking into putting something on the books which would make it illegal. The proposal is something called click to cancel. And this rule would let you cancel any kind of thing, memberships, it mentions on the website. And the process has to be as easy as it is to sign up. So if you have an incredibly difficult sign up process, firstly, good luck with that. But secondly, I presume you'll be allowed to have an equally difficult, backing out cancellation policy. But most companies want to do the dead easy sign up, one click, you're off to the races. Well, if it's as easy to sign up as it is with one click, then the idea would be that it would be the same on the other side. It would be just as easy to cancel. This strikes me as a really, really sensible law. They point to the fact that in the real world, they use gyms as an example. I'm not a member of a gym, so I don't know how this is, but they talk about the fact that you rock up to the gym for the first time, sign a piece of paper, and you're basically a member. But then cancelling that membership, you have to do things like go home and make a phone call and go through various things. And they have trained operatives on the other end of that phone who are very good at talking you down and trying to explain why you're missing out on this, that, and the other thing, and just trying to obfuscate and just put you off the scent, really. So I think this seems on the face of it to be the answer, right?
Could be the end of timeshares as we know it. Yeah.
But this, I mean, presumably, Mark, your plugin, or I don't know, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you've got things to tweak, but that seems like just common sense default.
Yeah. I mean, I tend to find if somebody is considering cancelling because they don't know whether it's got functionality or not, they'll ask. They won't just cancel. It's very rare that someone will just cancel because they couldn't find something. I tend to find that customers will make an inquiry about, how do I do this? And then we'll help them out with it. Usually our cancellations are things like maybe they've lost a contract and they're not working on it anymore, or they're not working with the customer anymore. And why make the process of cancelling difficult? I'd much rather end the relationship with the customer with them feeling happy, so that when they consider my plugin in future, they'll come back. If I make that cancellation process difficult, it's a sour flavor in their mouth, and they're not going to come back in future. So yeah, I like to keep it simple. I think this is a great thing.
So as always, interesting to get a contrary point of view. Atif says, as much as I agree with you, as a dev, it's important to learn why customers are leaving, as there may be holes that could be plugged or improvements. So I do opt to handle some way of getting that data. So is it a bit like I don't know, if you want to install a plugin, occasionally you'll get that one modal pop-up which says, why are you uninstalling this? And you get a choice of 3 things, 5 things, and then you can cancel. I think
I have that. I have that. It's
so,
just a simple question, and that's as far as it goes.
And in many cases, that question can be ignored. I think what Matt Medeiros was describing, or at least what he was creating that post in response to, was not that. It was a fairly lengthy journey with many tripwires on the way, where it was, I think, as many as sort of 7 or 8 pages deep. So it wasn't like, okay, tell us the reason that you're leaving. It was, here's a page, find the next page button. Well, it's buried at the bottom. Try another one, go through yet another page, then a modal, then click the correct thing in the modal, then go to yet another page, and then finally one last page where you click another button, and finally you're out. I think it was that kind of level, judging by the modal. Sorry, the flow chart that we saw. Then he goes on to say it's a fine line, but as Mark says, more often than not, people rush to get a refund when actually they can do what they like to do. That's great feedback for me, as it's not as user-friendly as I thought. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, actually, at what level people think this stuff is okay. We always get comments when a WordPress plugin posts an ad in the dashboard. I wonder if this will lead to a whole series of how acceptable is it to ask us for information before cancelling happens. And yeah, that's interesting. Peter Ingersoll.
He's back.
He's back. He is back. Look at that. The clocks changed. Of course they did. Yeah, the clocks went forward here in the UK. So Peter in Connecticut is an hour behind, but thanks for joining us, Peter. He's in Connecticut. It's 8 degrees centigrade, 47 degrees Fahrenheit. That's quite nice. And he says the lack of transparency when it comes to WP beginner tutorials and best ranking has greatly tarnished my opinion of AM. Yeah. Anything to add before we put the drama behind us?
I do, actually. Peter, you hit on a great point about the best rankings. There was a well-known computer magazine back in the day, PC Mag, and we all probably remember it. And they used to do top 10 rankings, but if you ever looked, their top 10 rankings were all based on what their advertisers were in the magazine. So,
I see. Yeah.
I think, Peter, your astuteness has hit it on the nail. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so go and check both of those pieces out. The Verge article and the Matt Medeiros one I will link to in the show notes, which come out tomorrow. You'll need to subscribe to get them. Actually, you don't. You can just go to the WordPress, the WP Builds website tomorrow and search for this episode. So, subscribe if you like. And by the way, if you do subscribe, there's a button at the bottom of every email. It says unsubscribe. Guess what that does?
15 pages.
Yeah. Oh, no, it goes. It's a series of 200 questions that you have to answer correctly about WordPress functions. And then once you've done that, you can unsubscribe. No.
It funneled the Matt Westguard to be right.
Yeah, it's the one click on unsubscribe, I promise. Okay, here's another nice thing. We had earlier here it is, look, the call for mentors. This is such a nice little project. This is Give WP, along with a variety of other companies, I might add. We mentioned it last week, but only in passing, really. It's called the Give Back-a-thon non-profit hackathon. You can find it at givewp.com, and then the next 4 words are hyphenated. So Give Back a Thon, each separated by a hyphen, again in the show notes. The idea really is that you come to this website, and if you are a non-profit, we call them charities in the UK, but non-profit, you fill out your form. You can see that I've incorrectly filled out this form because all the fields have turned red. I didn't put anything in. But you fill it in with the basic data about why you would like to have your website built for you gratis, for free. And they're going to do this for 3 non-profit companies. There are some incentives aside from that. If you're not one of the lucky 3, there are some other things on offer. It's open for 27 days. That is to say, the form will be open for 27 days. And I guess at that point, the decision making begins. And here we go. 3 complete websites built for stellar nonprofits. They are going to be, you get some free stuff thrown in to make your website sort of stand out a little bit more and bring some functionality. You get Give WP, Stellar WP products, including Yoast, and also Yoast Premium, Bertha AI, and look at that, Mark, bit of a coup for you. WS Form gets thrown in there. You also get free hosting on the Nexus platform. 5 runners-up are going to get a Give WP Pro plan. 10 finalists, so it's obviously whittling it down to 10. They're going to get 50% off the Give WP plan and 25% off for anybody who signs up and just gives it a go. So, yeah, this is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, don't quote me on this, but I think we're actually giving away the additional stuff for 2 or 3 years as well. So it'll, it won't just be for the first year. So they're actually going to get it for a longer time, which would be nice.
Let's see if we can find it. It doesn't seem to mention it. Oh, yeah, 3 years. Look, there you go.
Yeah.
It says Nexus Hosting sponsor, and we'll provide hosting and for the grand prize for 3 years.
Yeah. So we're definitely giving it for 3 years. So
okay.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that will be the same forever.
And I believe it was, so when we talked about the Stellar WP suite, that includes things like iTheme security, Cadence, obviously, if you're struggling. Calendar. Yeah, so they'll be able to build you a really credible site, but completely for free. So, if you're a non-profit, I don't think there's any requirement to be in any way connected with technology or WordPress or anything like that. I think this is just open to anybody. Yeah. But I don't know what the criteria are for deciding your worthiness as being a winner. But obviously there will be some criteria. But the form won't take you long. Give it a go. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Mark, for chipping in. That makes it
absolutely.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this, Rob?
Just a hats off to Stellar WP, all their partners, including Mark, Bertha, and anybody else involved. Well done. They give back to the community and the nonprofits. So, well done.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've obviously got to provide your Name and organ. Okay, here's the question. You need to provide your, I don't know what this means, but I presume it's some kind of official accreditation, your EIN.
EIN is like a US company number.
Okay, right.
Employee
And then your
identification
charity
number.
ID, if you're in the UK, that's something that you
Mhm.
can provide. So, okay, I don't think you could be applying for this if you weren't a bona fide, already set up, already baked in the oven, out there in the wild charity. I don't think this is for people who are thinking about starting a charity. So there are a few little tiny, teeny caveats, but otherwise, give that a go. All right. Righty ho. WP Turbo. This is so cool. I love this website. I'm just going to open it up in a new tab. So WP Turbo is a tool where you go in and you basically a bit like me. You don't really have the chops to do certain things, but you know that the solutions are out there. So you could go Google them and take your chances with that. Probably take you quite a long time. Or you can go to Turbo WP and that's quite kind of them. I've never noticed that before. They've got our logo on there. Oh, bless them. And you can do things like the menu generator, the post type generator, the theme.json generator, and so on. And so you go through the process. It asks you some questions. It's not really questions, but you fill out the forms, what you want it to have, blah, blah, blah. You can see on the screen here. It's really, really cool. And then you download it as a snippet, which you then put into your functions.php file. So there's one right there, right? The basic one that they start with. But as of this release, you can now invoke this button, which says download as a plugin. So you can then do exactly that. You no longer need to do your contact your developer if you're non-skilled. If you're happy that whatever you've done is okay and you don't want to have any contact with the developer, you can now download it as a plugin. I realize that for this audience, this is probably a bit moot, but nevertheless, I think for people who are not familiar with using, I don't know, functions.php or where that might live or anything like that, download it as a plugin, upload it to your website, and boom, you're good to go. I just think this is so cool. So that's the initiative that they're announcing. WordPress coding standard integration has also been announced on this post. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but the bit that caught my attention was the fact that, you can just download this as a plugin. But if anybody in the comments does know what they mean by coding standard integration, I'd be pleased to know. So again, over to you, fellas. What do you think?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that it's not AI. It looks like it's actually generated.
Yeah, it's just a human did it, I think.
Yeah. So it looks like, and I'm assuming that the WordPress coding standard would mean that the code it's generating is according to WordPress coding standards, which is nice. So, but yeah, that's really cool. I like the download plugin. That would make it a lot easier for people to integrate that.
But also just that idea that if you step through the hoops, let's just go back. Let's do, I don't know, post type generator.
Yeah.
And let's just take immediately what we've got. If you've never done this before and you've never taken an interest, some of this immediately starts to sort of, I get it a little bit. It starts to teach you a little bit about how it works. Look, every line within the label is the same. There's some kind of syntax going on there. Why is there a little bit at the front followed by this peculiar little arrow? What's all that about? And you would just start to get an idea of how this works and what it's doing.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such a
all
cool
the
project.
bits that you forget about are there.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. And then you can obviously build it up, name things, change the labels of things, all there. I actually think so. I've used a plugin in the past, which I really like. It's by Web Dev Studios. It's called Custom Post Type UI. And it does all of this in a plugin. Yeah. But this strikes me as this. I could easily replace it right here, and it would do exactly the same thing. And I would just have my own little unique plugin, which feels like, I don't know. It just feels like there's something nice about that.
Quite a nice way of learning how to code for WordPress.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I was trying to illustrate. You could come in here and begin the journey, right?
Yeah. So as you tweak things, you can see how that affects the code.
Yeah, I don't know what happens. I don't know if it does it on the fly. So if we uncheck things, does it do that as we go? If you know what I mean. It does. Look, did you notice it?
Yeah.
As we were doing it on the screen, slightly lower down. So let's check them all.
That's cool.
Isn't it cool? It's really great.
Well done. That's so cool.
Yeah. But it really does have a broad range of things. Like I said, right at the top, let's go back to the oops. Let's go to the main site. Post type generator, taxonomy generator, menus, shortcodes, hook
Yeah.
generator, WP config, starter plugin generator, theme.json, and then 40 more. WordPress admin related, WordPress query generators, other WordPress generators,
Google font loader. That's cool.
Yeah, WooCommerce stuff, couple for Elementor.
Oh,
Fabulous.
that's good. That's really cool. Elementor widget.
Elementor widget. So there you go. You can build your Elementor widget as well. Anyway, now it's available downloading as a plugin. So that's very, very cool indeed.
Fantastic. I like that.
Indeed. Right. Okay.
Wow.
Ouch.
Obviously, when I mentioned security, I've caveated the whole thing with how I'm not a coder. So, I really do understand that things break. But still, this does seem like quite a bad one. Hacker News and almost every news outlet on the planet. I think this one actually made it onto the front page of a few actual real-world newspapers in the UK. It was deemed that serious. Critical WooCommerce payments plugin flaw patched in 500. Wow. 500 plus thousand WordPress websites. And I'll just quote quickly. Patches have been released for a critical security flaw impacting the WooCommerce payments plugin for WordPress, which is installed over 500,000 times. The flaw, if left unresolved, could enable a bad actor to get. I was going to come up with some actor who I thought was quite bad at this point, but then I thought, just forget it, Wrigley, just move on. We could enable a bad actor to gain unauthorized admin access to impacted stores, the company said on the 23rd. Put differently, the issue could permit an unauthenticated attacker to impersonate an administrator, and here it is, completely take over a website without any user interaction or social engineering requirement. Now, I could be wrong, but that line seems to be about as bad as it gets in terms of security. I can't imagine a line being much worse than that. The bottom line is, if you're in any way connected with WooCommerce and you suspect that you're using WooCommerce payments, which a lot of you are, please go and get it updated and save yourself a lot of trouble. I imagine that within 20 minutes of this being announced, the hackers started paying great attention to it, because where there's WooCommerce, there's money. And where there's money, there's an incentive to do it quickly, right? So anyway, I don't know if either of you have got anything on this. Mark, I think you did, didn't you, before we started recording? You said you'd had a little poke around.
I'm always interested just to look at the change log and see how this occurred. From what I gather, and Rob can probably back me up on this and explain this as well, because Rob's really the security expert here, but it appeared that what had happened was in the code for the site, for the WooCommerce payments plugin, it looked like it was old testing code where you could inject the user ID using what's called an HTTP header. So when you make a request to a web server, there are various HTTP headers that get set up. Things like, hey, here's what browser I'm using, here's the type of content I accept, etc., etc. And there was a custom HTTP header that could be set, and that would numerically set the user ID on the website. And it appeared that code had been in there for quite some time from what I had read. So I'm quite surprised it hadn't been pulled out at some point. And that was basically the vulnerability. Somebody discovered that piece of code. They immediately removed that piece of code. I think it was an include file or something. Really, really surprising that fell through the hoop, because that's a very significant security flaw.
Yeah. I'm nodding my head because I couldn't have said it any better, Mark. Thank you. One thing I would throw out there before everybody in the community gets bent out of shape, the word is they've patched it. So to be fair, they haven't ignored it. Security is a big thing based on trust, and I think they've done their job on this one. They've vulnerabilities come out, they've patched it. The other thing I would say to anybody who's running a Woo store is, guys, please don't leave your plugins out of date for 3 months at a time. You got to get on those weekly, if not bi-weekly. If you're not going to do it, get somebody to do it for you. And also make sure you got backups and you've tested those backups to make sure you can do a restore, because I've seen cases where code's been injected and you've got to go back 5 backups. I've seen that happen. And sometimes you got to go back and then you realize, oh, geez, my restore doesn't work properly. So like that be the lesson. Like these are going to happen. Security vulnerability is going to happen. If you look at any of the vulnerability reports, PatchStack reported that 42% of all WordPress sites have at least one vulnerable plugin in their year-end roundup this year. And we need to be aware of numbers like that. And we need to make sure we're updating our websites. Usually when I get to look at a website of this magnitude, I can guarantee you the plugins are 6 months out of date. There's no backup. The hosting backup's a mess. And then the poor client is in a conundrum on what to do. So like do the right things from step up and then you'll be okay. These are going to happen.
Yeah, I like how transparent they were about this. When they found it, they immediately jumped on it, got it fixed. They also worked in with the plugin team to make sure that plugins were updated, because they do have that magic button I think they can press to make that happen. So yeah, I think they dealt with it the right way, and by jumping on it quickly, hopefully they've stopped a lot of sites being vulnerable.
Yeah, I wonder how high up in the list of priorities WooCommerce, especially something like this, how it figures in the hacker's mind. In other words, is this a drop what you're doing, let's concentrate on WooCommerce for the next few days, or if this is actually let's crack on with our Android exploit because that's probably more profitable. I don't know, but this one felt like a bad one, taking over potentially 500,000 websites as an administrator. I don't know what havoc you could cause, but it could be a very, very large amount, and a lot of it involving siphoning money to the wrong destination, I would imagine. Yeah.
The minute money's involved, the priority goes up exponentially by 1,000. Like
yeah.
That does it.
Yeah, they did the right thing.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just quickly going backwards in time. Antonio, thank you. He says, ironically, the Pro version will include AI snippets. I think we're talking about WP Turbo, so that's interesting. So the Pro version adopts some AI stuff. Okay, interesting stuff.
No.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If they have a subsection which says generated by AI, that I think is fair play, right?
Yeah, as long as it's clear.
Yeah, label it. Yeah. Do you want it full of Do you want it full of like problems? Tick the AI button. Yeah. And Atif says ACF now has CPT in their latest update.
Custom post types.
Yeah, about time. Yeah. Oh, is this a new piece of news that I missed? I did not see that. Can we do that next week? But
ACF is normally. ACF is normally custom fields, and they're going to be introducing custom post type configuration into it. So, because I use ACF a lot. I love ACF.
I use ACF a lot. Yeah,
and I use CPT UI.
That's the one I was mentioning. Custom post types UI. Yeah.
So this is actually going to bundle them all together into ACF. So
interesting. Atif, I wonder if you know whether that is pro or free. I don't know. That sounds like maybe it would be a pro feature. That's cool though. I missed that piece of news. Honestly, I have one thing to do each week. It's to find the WordPress news, and I failed to find that bit. But let's carry on regardless. Mark was very kind over the last week or so. Firstly, he came on a show with me and he did a demo, which was really nice of him. But he also offered up 2 of his licenses. I'm just going to refresh this page quickly. And we've decided who the 2 winners were. The form was open. We had about, 25 or something like that. And I whittled it down to the 4 that I thought were most winnable. You had to fill out a form. Guess who made the form? It was a WS form. And we've decided that 2 winners, I won't say surnames, but Sean and Ian, I'll be in touch in the next day or so. You are going to be the happy custodians of a license for WS Form. It's the personal edition, and I'm sure that if I contact you, you'll be able to in some way reach out to Mark and make that happen. So, Ian and Sean, you were the only people with those names who filled out the form. So, if you filled out the form and your name was Ian or Sean, you are the winner. If your name was Ian and you've secondarily filled out the form under the pseudonym of Sean, well, you've won it twice. Congratulations for fooling us with your AI bot. Oh, thank you, Nomad Skateboarding. That's really kind. By the way, as Mark said, if you go to that page, you can still get 20% off WS Form if you weren't a winner. So, you can do that. Righty ho. Shopify is the way.
Palmer. Good morning.
That's Andrew Palmer. Yeah. That's. I suppose there's something to be said for that. Andrew is no doubt talking about the WooCommerce debacle. Okay, right. Let's move on, shall we? Let's put the screen back on and take the comment away. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. We've done that one. Okay. I didn't put this one here, I don't think. Did one of you put this one here? Was it you, Mark? No, maybe I did put it here. This was the story that OpenAI, basically, we're talking about AI a lot, I apologize, but AI broke last week. It was a bug. Oh, good grief. I mean, sigh. If you were a user of OpenAI last week, and my understanding is you had to be on their paid plan, it's quite possible that your name, address, and some portion of your payment details came into other people's conversations.
I did have this one. I remember it now. And how horrific it was.
I don't even know what to say. So the idea, everybody goes to ChatGPT. It's a blank screen. You've got a text field. You type something into the text field and you hope for an input back. But what I'm guessing what was happening is people were putting in their query and then unexpectedly, part of the result that was coming back was people's names, addresses, email addresses, and four digits of people.
Yeah, I don't know whether this was appearing in the chat itself or if it was maybe in the account page or something. It's not very clear, but I mean that is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
from a security perspective and a privacy issue. Oh my god!
Well, apparently this vulnerability, whatever it was only exploitable for something in the region of 8 hours or something like that.
Only 8 hours.
Only 8 hours.
but you've got to imagine. I don't know. It feels as if that wouldn't have been in the admin UI because in some way, like that would be inexcusable now, right? To be literally putting the incorrect information in a UI of people's names and addresses because that problem's been solved decades ago, right? We know how to do account pages, but we don't know how to do chat. So I'm going to just put my foot out and say I think this probably appeared in the chat, but I don't.
Oh, it actually says, sorry, in the second paragraph there, it just say if they were clicking on my account and then manage my subscription between 1 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Oh, I'm wrong then. Okay.
It was so it was showing in the my account page.
You know what the problem is? They got AI to build their my account page.
That's right. The AI made all their code.
Yeah. Anyway, a serious point. If you are a paid user, it is possible that your name, address, email address, and 4 digits. I mean, come on, nobody's going to guess the other. What is it, 12 or something? But still, not ideal. Sigh. Right. Okay. No, we'll do that one in a minute. Let's go to this one. Okay. This is amazing, right? Anybody who listens to this, you've got to do this because it is fascinating. So we're familiar with the cookie. We know what the cookie does. It maintains some kind of state. You're logged in, you're not logged in, and so on. Now, obviously, there's a lot of pushback against cookies. There's a lot of endeavors to obliterate cookies, to periodically wipe cookies, to have extensions in browsers which prevent third-party cookies and so on. And so a lot of ingenious people have come up with other ways of figuring out who you are. And one of the most interesting ones is called web fingerprinting. So rather than having anything to do with a cookie, what this does is it sucks out information about your browser session and then just takes a ton of data and figures out some unique combination that you've got. So, for example, your IP address, what extensions you've got installed, what the viewport size is, what CPU you're running, what OS you're running. All of this stuff is given away freely. And then it creates a fingerprint of you, which is then trackable and, it turns out, sellable on the internet. And honestly, go to this page. It's called bitestring.com. The post is simply called "Web Fingerprinting is Worse Than I Thought," and go and see if you can be caught up in this, because I thought I'm being a bit clever. I've got my Brave browser switched on. I've got all my shields up. I've got a few plugins, extensions installed. I'm in an incognito window, so you can't see them. But the point is, I thought there's no way I'm going to be fingerprintable. Oh, I was so fingerprintable. So you go down here, go to the bottom of the page, and you click on fingerprint.com. You just go there once, and then it'll draw that fingerprint. It'll put together that fingerprint. Then go open up an incognito session of the same browser, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to go in there and the unique string will be different. No, they got you. Just try it. Go there, try it now. Have either of you two tried it?
Not yet.
I'm worried if I try it that I'm going to be in a database forevermore.
Yeah, well, the thing is,
sell me to someone else.
Just resize your browser or something, or change your IP address quickly. But it totally got me. So my Brave session, it tracked me, even though I was in an incognito mode. So it proved to me that it was possible. However, Firefox, if you're into this kind of stuff, Firefox have got a new config setting called privacy resist fingerprinting. And if you set that to true, you go to about.config in Firefox. Yeah. And I tested it in Firefox when that had been activated, and it didn't work. Every single time I went to the fingerprinting.com page, it gave me a new thing. So all I'm saying is, forget cookies. They got you. They got you anyway. Yeah. They know who you are. And apparently it's just some big guy in a leather chair stroking a cat. He's the guy gathering all. He's called Mr. Evil or something. He's the guy gathering. Just honestly though, doesn't this stuff freak you out? This is not what I want the internet to be.
They've been doing this for years though.
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing it for years. It's naughty.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been, but they do. They do. It's funny, like the screen stuff is all JavaScript based, so I assume that Firefox setting you can do must misreport the screen width or just set it to 0 or something. So I don't know how that would impact some sites that use that data for like responsiveness. It's interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm really not sure.
Like user agent and stuff like that, blocking that. That's
and my understanding is it's not just one data point; it's a whole mishmash of different anything that they can grab. They'll grab and draw. Whatever they can get for you. And if you think about it, like there's no way that me, you, and Rob, if we just did what OS you're using. Well, probably there's 1 or 2 options there, maybe 3. What browser are we on? That's possibly different. Tell me all of the plugin extensions you've got for your browser. I don't think there's any chance that the 3 of us have got the same ones. We might share a few, but not all of them. Viewport size, CPU. I can't off the top of my head think of anything else which might go into that cocktail, but I bet there's more.
Yeah. I mean, even the time zone stuff, that immediately differentiates us, right?
Yeah.
Internet provider.
Yeah. And you said it was JavaScript, but now it's being sold as a service. So this data can now be sold, and so it's just another way of tracking you around the internet. I mean, the hope, I guess, would be that browsers like Firefox will set this to true just by default at some point when they've run all the tests. I mean, maybe there's a case for wishing this to happen in the same way that some people just like to be tracked because, they would prefer having the ads which represent their desires rather than the ads which don't. But personally, I feel the trade-off isn't worth it, and I'd rather have this set up. So anyway, it's called bitestring.com. Search for the article on the 19th of March, and you can see that. And, go and see. Atif said they're going to get you no matter what you do. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, right.
They'll always find a way.
Yeah. I got my access to the Steve Jobs I got access to.
I think it's the voice of Steve Jobs.
Oh, we're back onto AI there. Sorry, I thought this was about this. I will look at that a little bit later. Right, we're very fast approaching the top of the hour, so let's just quickly do. We did that one. We'll go back to this one. I love this stuff, but at the same time, it's so weird. If you want to hear the oldest recorded piece of music, some bright spark found a cuneiform tablet with music on it. Well, what they figured was music. They then figured out what the most likely, how to describe it, key that music could have been in, because obviously in the West, at least anyway, we're all listening to, we're all tuned in to enjoy the same kind of sounds. And back in Sumeria, not so. And they figured it out: 3.4 thousand year old piece of music, and it's not very good, really. It's not gonna sell a lot. Put it that way, you know. Spotify.
We're not looking at not a platinum record.
No, I'm jesting. You know, I of course it's good. It's good because it's ancient and it's fascinating and all of that. But it's not going to set the pulse racing. I will include it in the show notes. It's on the Open Culture website. Just fascinating. How is it possible that we can resurrect music from nearly 3,500 years ago? Okay, that's it. That's all I've got. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I've got a special treat for you.
Oh,
oh dear. Okay, so there I am, right? There I am. And what is on Nathan's
what's
head?
above Nathan's head?
What's above Nathan's head? What is
Russian
it?
dolls.
Oh, stop it. That was too easy. Oh, those of you that are listening, I put a little mask on.
That's
Not
brilliant.
a mask as in on my face. I put a mask so that you can only see the bit at the top. Russian dolls it is. Yeah. Do you know what the real name for Russian dolls is? Because I did know it and I've forgotten it. But there is an actual... Go and get it, Mark. Go and get the thing. Go and get the head. He's gone off to find the head. Hang on, I'm going to make you full screen. Wait a sec. Right, go on. Let's have a look.
Here, this was Nathan in Asia, and he popped out. And there he is.
Oh, can you wear that when we do the little wave at the end? Just you can do the one-handed
Yeah, let's
wave.
do
Oh,
that.
that's
Let's do
absolutely brilliant. Mark
do
was
that.
just showing this funny little cardboard cutout that he had made of yours truly for WordCamp Asia. Listen, in all seriousness, thank you for joining us today, Mark and Rob. I really appreciate it. Thanks to anybody who has made the time to enjoy the show this week and write a comment. I really appreciate it. Don't forget, go and tell your friends. It's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? We just have a bit of fun and talk about WordPress at the same time. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we'll be all four of us. So thank you so much. We're going to do our wave that we do at the end, and Mark's... Thank you so much. Take it easy, guys.